All right, welcome back to another What Happened This Month in the month of March 2024. It was not too much of an eventful month for me. Didn't go anywhere. Had some, veterinary appointments to take my cats to. But otherwise pretty low key. It's been kind of gray and dreary here where I am. But there's nothing to talk about, so let's get into a few things that I was up to in March 2024. I put up a couple videos in the past month. They're probably the only two about my recent upgrade of my PC. Got a 4070 Super, installed that in my machine, and immediately got a bunch of comments about how my CPU was too old for that card. And I didn't think much of it because it played most things pretty well, and I was happy with the upgrade. I knew I would eventually upgrade to something more modern eventually, but then I started looking and I found this incredible deal at Micro Center for a new i9, and I went for it. So I just upgraded my motherboard and my CPU and my RAM, and yeah, it definitely made a difference in certain games. So that was nice. I'll put a list of my components here on the screen. Very happy with it. It's been running really well. Haven't had many issues with it. Now I'm on Windows 11, so that's new for me too. Yeah, not too much else to report there. I'm happy with the build. So not sure I'll have much more content about my PC gaming in the near future. I will probably do more PC gaming now that I have a decent rig, a modern rig. But yeah, maybe now I'll be more inclined to use my PC for high-end gaming because it's a high-end gaming computer. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking more games out with that machine. Another thing I was up to one day this month was Dreamcast Day. So my brother-in-law has a Dreamcast and a bunch of games for it, and me and my wife went over to their place, or to my brother-in-law's place, and we just checked out a bunch of Dreamcast games that day. I think we loaded up Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, Sonic Adventure, Centipede, Rayman 2, I think. A lot of different stuff. Some of it's aged well, some of it hasn't. Centipede was funny because it has a cooperative two-player mode. He has two controllers, and so me and him got two-player mode going. And I mean, the resolution in one-player mode and the graphics didn't look great. I mean, it's a Dreamcast game. But for it to run two-player and split screen, man, the models degraded it's so funny. Like, hopefully I can find a clip of it somewhere. The Centipede, instead of looking like spheres in a chain, it's a 3D game. So like you have your little ship and you're kind of, putzing around and shooting and stuff, and the Centipede is, kind of tracking its way down to you like it would in the arcade game. But it's all in 3D. Instead of being spheres, the Centipede turned into this kind of shape, like a tetramino, I don't know what you call it, dodecahedron, some kind of weird. It was very low poly. It became very funny, and it did not run well, but it did work. Like, it did run. It just wasn't fun. But it was cool that they had that in there. I thought Rayman 2 was really impressive. It looked really good. The sound was good. The music and the art was really nice. Really polished for a Dreamcast game back in the day. Tony Hawk is always fun. I didn't have I was trying to do stuff and I was just like, my muscle memory is not there. Especially with the Dreamcast controller. It's not a complicated controller, but it's just, I was not there with it. SEGA Rally, I think we tried that. That also handled interestingly. It felt okay. The music was really good. But it was also the fact that there was the main mode, and I tried to race in the main mode, didn't get very far. It's like you got to make it to the checkpoint by the timer, by the time the timer runs out. And I think it made it to the first one, but not the second one. And then I was like, oh, well, if I just go practice, I'll do in the practice mode, and then I can play the whole course or like the whole set of courses and see what there is to see. No, you still have to meet the checkpoint time. So I only played like 2 levels of one of the courses in SEGA Rally. Yeah, and then Sonic Adventure is always good. They've played that game to death. My wife and her brother have played that game a number of times. I've never really played it fully through. I've seen them play it. Later than that week, or maybe it was just last week, my wife and I decided to boot up Sonic Adventure 2 because I've got the GameCube version, and yeah, that game is okay. It starts to fall apart once it's like, oh, I gotta play as Knuckles again. I gotta look for these gems again. Like, there's a lot there that's not great, not super polished, but yeah, I mean, it's fine. I guess I haven't played it through, but we played maybe 7 or 8 stages of it and got tired of it. But that was fun, Dreamcast Day. We made some food, played a bunch of Dreamcast games, had a good time. It was a fun day. Now, as for the games that I completed this month, there were 3 again. First up, I'll talk about Alan Wake Remastered. Now, I did put Alan Wake 2 on my best games of the year list of 2023. Stand by that because that is a phenomenal game, and you should check it out if you haven't. But Alan Wake Remastered also came out a couple years ago. The original Alan Wake came out in 2010, and I played it shortly after that time. I'm not sure what year I first played it, but I did play it around that era on my PC. And now I have the PS5 version of Alan Wake Remastered. It's still fun. It's still a good game. There's a lot to like in there. Remedy has been telling stories like nobody else for a long time, and that's a very clear indication of that. That game tells an interesting story in a very interesting way. Lots of scenes that you really couldn't do any other way. You're walking through different spaces, and sometimes things are fading in and out of existence, or you're seeing things that preceded events or are following events, or you're seeing different kind of echoes of scenes that you might not have been present for. And it's a 360 era game, so it's more of an action horror game than a survival horror, which Alan Wake 2 is a survival horror game. So you're got the same mechanics. You're shining your flashlight to weaken enemies, then you've got your weapons, your pistols, shotguns to defeat them. And that's all in there. That's the core gameplay of Alan Wake 1 and 2. And it's definitely way more campy. You got Barry running around in the main game and in the extra episodes that are packaged in. The DLC, I think, from the original game is packaged in as there are 2 extra episodes that give you a little taste of Mr. Scratch, who may or may not appear in Alan Wake 2. Yeah, it's still fun. Still a lot of fun. The core gameplay is still enjoyable. It's got a little bit of the 360 era jank. Like sometimes enemies just spawn on top of you and you have no idea and no way to get out of that. And you're running a certain way, but then like, oh, that's where the enemy's supposed to spawn. And then you just get and then you're down. You're dead. So sometimes it's a little trial and error, and it can get tense in bigger encounters and with. Well, what I forgot about in this game is that inanimate objects attack you all the time. Big, like, axles and wheels, big, like, I don't know, furniture, loose debris is all just thrown at you a lot of the time. I forgot about that. That is not really in Alan Wake 2. It's very unique to this game. So you have those inanimate object encounters. You have also driving sections, which do not really appear in Alan Wake 2. There's more driving in this game than I remembered. And sometimes you're able to attack enemies while you're driving. You have the headlights, will do some damage. You can run them over. So yeah, the driving is kind of, you can take it or leave it. It's just in there to get you from point A to point B. This game is very linear. There's not a lot of backtracking. There are secrets to find. They're usually just like, oh, you're pointing your flashlight and it's like, oh, there's a little bit of yellow. You follow the yellow, you find a little cache. Usually some guys spawn in once you find the cache, and then you have to defeat them. It tells the story is, I think it's interesting. It's a horror story, but it's got an interesting twist to it with, Alan Wake being the writer who's writing the story, but he's in the story and he's writing his way out of the story to combat the darkness, the dark presence. I think Alan Wake Remastered is definitely worth your time. It was free on PlayStation Plus a while back, and yeah, if you've got it, definitely give it a go. If you're looking for a little bit of a lighter action horror game, it's a lot of fun. A game I really wanted to get into when it launched, but it just wasn't wasn't going to make it onto my schedule, was Sea of Stars. It came out last summer, and it looked really great. I loved the art style. I tried the demo, had a lot of fun with it, and wow, Sea of Stars is incredible. I have not played a game like that in quite a long time. That's a stripped down RPG, JRPG. It's got all the basic systems and mechanics of, you've got a party, you've got equips, you've got items, you've got spells, you've got dialogue and characters to meet, and different environments, and a story that gets a lot bigger than I expected. Yeah, what an incredible job by Sabotage to put together that game. The music was fantastic. I don't really know if it's the same composer as The Messenger, which I'll talk about in a second. Just phenomenal all the way through. Musical references to The Messenger with remixes of those tracks, a few of those tracks. Yeah, just incredible art. The animation was really great. Just so much the time and attention and detail put into that game. The combat is really cool. It's sort of tactical, but it's more like strategic in terms of what attacks you use and what attacks the enemies are going to use. They have, sometimes you can see their attack coming, and you can see there's what they call locks. If you break those locks, that will cancel the attack. You have to deal certain types of damage to break those locks, and depending on your characters, and you can swap out characters mid combat encounter. But yeah, it's a really nice system. Really enjoyed it. As you progress in the game, it's the same system, but things get, they ramp up the challenge, they ramp up the nuance of how you are approaching each combat encounter. Certain enemy types or certain bosses require different strategies, and positioning does matter. You can use certain characters to reposition enemies to get them in a better grouping, so you can hit them with a better attack or like a wider attack. I haven't played many other games like it. I know it draws a lot from Chrono Trigger. It's a very much Chrono Trigger inspired game. Forgive me, not that I've played Chrono Trigger, but I've heard that's where they draw a lot of inspiration from. And like I said, the story has so many twists and turns. It goes to a lot of different places, has a lot of highs, and if you've played it, you know there has one big low in the game, but we won't talk about that. Yeah, no, it's a really cool story. Definitely surprised me. Definitely surprised me in terms of how much they set up all of the things in Sea of Stars with The Messenger. And having played Sea of Stars recently, and having played The Messenger many years ago, I was compelled to pick up The Messenger again and 100% that game, see it all the way through. The Messenger is just a great game. It's a Ninja Gaiden-like. So you're a ninja, you've got your basic attack and some upgrades to that attack. And it's a side-scroller platformer. You're running around different stages and defeating enemies and beating bosses, and there's a story that is unfolding around you, and it's funny. It's got a lot of humor, more so I think than Sea of Stars. It's got a lot more like direct humor targeted at the player, like it breaks the fourth wall constantly. Yeah, I think it's still fun. It's still a lot of fun. Solid game for sure. The music is incredible, and the art's really nice. Not a huge spoiler because it's in like the trailers of the launch trailers of the game, but there's an 8-bit section of the game and then there's a 16-bit section of the game. I really enjoy the art styles of both of those and how they interweave and how they're connected, and the boss fights are really good in The Messenger. Those are the high points, like there's the traversal and there's upgrades that you can get to make traversal easier. You'll do a little backtracking to get different items or go different places. It's an interconnected map. So it kind of turns into a Metroidvania in a way. It's not so high on like getting an item to unlock a specific place, but it does have a lot of like, you know, backtracking and finding secrets, and yeah, the bosses were good. There's a lot of interesting fights in there, especially the ones at the end of the game and at the end of the DLC mini campaign, Picnic Panic. They put you in like an alternate universe where you're on the beach and the Phoebicans or whatever they're called are having a picnic, but then they get assaulted and now you have to save them, and it's a little mini like twist on the story that you just played in the main game. It's fun. The end boss of that Picnic Panic is a lot of fun. It's maybe not totally original, but it's cool. It's a good set piece. But yeah, a lot of fun. The Messenger is a great game. I suppose I could just check my Steam, because I played it on Switch originally, and this was my first time playing it on Steam. Well, it says I did some B-roll recording. I've clocked 17 hours in the Messenger, so I would say to do everything, yeah, 12 to 15 hours on your first time through. It was kind of that for me, like not having played it in 5+ years. But yeah, a great game. The Messenger holds up definitely very well. I've got a couple other games and videos cooking. Well, I'm currently almost done with the Dead Space remake, so I'll talk about that next month. And my wife and I started Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons remake. And that's a very short game, but we just haven't gotten back to it. But that's a fun game too. Hopefully we'll finish that soon, and I can talk about that once we're done with it. We played the original, but yeah, I just wanted to try out this remake of Brothers. Seems like they did a lot of work to update it, so it seems really interesting. But otherwise, that's my month of March. I'm about to head out of town to go to Albuquerque. Haven't really been there, so that'll be interesting to spend some time there with my wife for a few days. Well, that's all I've got for you this month. I'll talk to you when it's more like spring in April. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next month.